Welcome to you. My name's Dayle and this is DaylesAddiction. Today I'm bringing you another request from my subscriber Karen Lou. Hi Karen. Karen has asked if I could do a video talking about how I justify my luxury handbags. And I responded to Karen and said, hey, listen, I did a bit of a rant last year about not judging me and my luxury addiction. I will link that video above. It's my early YouTube days, but I still concur with a lot of the points that I made in that video. But I said to her, look, I'll have a bit of a think around what's happened for me since that video, and I will add to it when I've kind of cemented those thoughts. So the video that she commented on was another request video that I did, which was around what are my thoughts on purse piece and how many bags are too many bags and how do I choose a bag and those sorts of things. So that's the context around me doing this video. I also want to touch on the fact that we all probably watch a lot of similar videos and a lot of similar channels, and there are a few YouTubers at the moment reflecting on their luxury journeys and kind of documenting them in a video style journal, and I guess, in my view, projecting their own journey onto others as advice, which I've got some things to say about as well. So let's just leave it there. I've made a couple of points because there's a couple of things that I want to touch on here. So Karen's question was around not justifying your interest to others. And I think that, and I'm going to talk in the first person for this whole video. I'm not going to talk about we or people in the luxury community because I cannot know if you're in the same boat as me or you're in the same environments that I'm in, or the same people around you, but I'll just talk about my own personal experience. So when I think about justifying, I think the main person that I need to justify myself to is me. And what I mean by that is, can I lie straight in bed at night? Am I hurting myself or other people around me? Am I in denial? Is something out of control? Has it changed my values and how I want to show up in my relationships with people, whether they be personal, friendships, work, those sorts of things? So when I think about justifying my interests, as long as I can kind of tick all those boxes in the positive space, I don't need to justify my interest to people. I'm at an age, and when I say that, I'm not meaning to be patronizing to anyone younger than me, but I mean that the people who kind of make up my friendship groups are all at an age where we've kind of come out of our careers. We have gone into that very steep period of fast learning, fast progression, and potentially children have grown up a bit and there's more disposable income around. And so whatever my particular interest might be, which could be different to my friends, still involves spending some cash. For me, it's luxury handbags, and I don't push that onto other people. I don't judge other people for what bag they're carrying. They will spend the same amount of money, or used to, pre-COVID, on overseas travel, on renovating their home, on a new car, on their kids' education. I think do you get asked to justify why you've sent your kids to an independent school that might cost $30,000 a year in fees as opposed to the public school? Probably. And how do you justify that? So for me, I think I'm in a circle of people where I find I don't really need to justify. In saying that though, in the past, and sometimes here and there, I do have people say to me, oh, well, what's that handbag worth? That's probably worth the same as my car. And I'm like, well, take a guess. What do you think it's worth? And I kind of just eyeball them. And if they guess correctly, I tell them. If they don't guess correctly, I correct them and tell them. One example is the Fendi Mini Peekaboo. Not a lot of people would probably spend $6,300 on that bag. I did. I love it, and I'm happy with the decision that I made. And I wear that bag knowing that I made a conscious choice to put that money on that bag because I can, and I love it. And if you're really someone who's important in my life, you'll respect that decision. So the point I'm trying to make there is you're probably better at minimizing yourself and your luxury interests than what other people are. So if I say that in the first person, I'm probably going to minimize myself and my luxury interests more than anyone else around me. That's the reality. I will be my own worst critic, and you probably are too. I'm my own worst critic, and most human beings are. So the next point that I want to make is around spending habits. There are a few people in my YouTube subscriptions talking about or analysing their own spending habits and what that might mean, and kind of sharing lessons learned for other people. I think that's a little bit, I find it a little bit patronising, that just because you might be in a situation where you've splashed the cash without thought or feeling and found yourself in a space where that doesn't align with your values anymore, that's what other people do as well. It's kind of it's a touchy situation, but I think certainly there are people out there that do that. But I think if that's your journey, you need to talk about it as in, this is what I do, this is what I'm going to do differently, not this is what I've done, this is what I'm going to do differently, and you should do it too. Because I don't think anyone's qualified to give anyone else advice here. All you can do is share your own story and what you've learned from it. Which brings me to my next point. Using the terms we in the luxury community, we do this, we do that. I'm not for that. I think if you're going to talk about choices, you need to talk about your own choices. It kind of touches on the points that I've made before, but I like this, I spend that, I justify it this way, I respond this way, I wish I'd have done this differently. This is what I will do differently next time. I know it's kind of a very small thing, but it makes a big difference when you're owning your own actions. And it's, without going into a psychology lesson, we can justify anything we want, basically because of our belief cycle. We get a whole bunch of information from different parts of our life on which we form our fundamental values and beliefs basis. And that informs how we think about things and therefore what we do. And as long as that cycle continues to reinforce itself, we'll keep being able to justify really random things that other people who have different interests wouldn't be able to justify and could quite easily critique. Now, if I put this to you in an example that all of us know, let's talk about speeding. If your belief system is that you've had your driver's license for several years and you've always had a rule of being able to go 7 to 10 kilometres over the speed limit, and that's a safe additional speed, and therefore if you drive that speed, you'll get to where you're going quicker and you won't get caught by the police. And most of the time that happens. You don't get that speeding fine and you don't get caught. So it reinforces the belief that 7 to 10 k's over is okay. Then one day you get caught. Oh, a new bit of data comes in and you think, maybe I shouldn't speed in that spot. And so it might influence your actions to not speed in that spot. And you continue doing that and you don't get caught until you get caught in another spot, or until you're in an accident where that excess speed caused you to react or have less reaction time and you got in an accident. Then you've got a big piece of data coming in that's going to cause you to think differently. So if you consider that our belief cycle kind of works like that, they reinforce, we are going to continue to be able to justify any perspective that we hold until new data comes in that not only causes us to think differently, but also behave differently, because they're reinforcing beliefs. So nobody can tell you anything until you experience it for yourself. Another thing that I want to bring up is critique or judgment. Now, personally, I don't really experience critique or judgment anymore. And I think that this YouTube journey has helped me not to be a target for that, because potentially talking about it all the time helps me to clarify my narrative around my interests, what draws me to enjoy the search and appreciation for luxury handbags. People know that more about me now because I talk about it more. And to be honest, when I come across friends and family, if they're not interested in luxury handbag, they wouldn't even ask, or they just wouldn't ask. And the people who do know are really supportive and excited whenever each of us purchase a bag. We always share it. We kind of had this secret society where we send each other things on Messenger. Obviously, I'm on YouTube and Instagram, so I'm not so secret anymore, but I still have friends who don't feel as comfortable to share things that bring them joy on social media, and so we share them with each other offline. When I do get judgment, it's usually from someone new who comes into my life, and it's really funny watching people get on their Harry high horse and think that they can, judge you for being irresponsible with money and la la la. And I personally have two responses to those sorts of critique. One is, I really enjoy using this handbag. Thanks for noticing it. And the second one is, why would you say that to me? And when you ask someone to justify why they think they have the right to insult your interests, usually they will back right off and say something like, oh no, I didn't mean to offend you. I was just, that's a lot of money for a bag and this and that. And it kind of shuts down the situation. If you practice saying that a few times, you will find that you just don't come across that anymore. The final thing, and I wanted to end on a positive note, is one thing that I have discovered by owning my luxury addiction and wearing my bags wherever and whenever I want is that there's support in very unexpected places. I recently went on a trip home to where I grew up for my grandmother's 90th birthday, and I saw my cousins that I hadn't seen for 15 years, and they're in their early 20s, and one had on a Louis Vuitton belt and one had on a Gucci belt, and I just thought, wow, here we are. There's 20 years between us in age and we have the same interests. In my work, I come across people all the time, and I don't draw attention to my bags, but I've come across, hello, you know who you are, people in my work who have had a little bit of luxury on them, and I've noticed it, and then later on they've reached out and said, hey, I just found you on YouTube. And I said, I thought you might have been in this game because I noticed your Louis Vuitton wallet, but I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't sure how comfortable you were. There's people all over the place that have these interests, but there's nowhere safe to talk about it. And that's what I think YouTube is great for. And I think the more you own your interests and the better responses that you have to people who might on the surface be insulting or critiquing your interests, the more open you are to find the people who actually support you and have similar interests, and you can create new friendships and connections through those shared interests. So they're kind of my thoughts on, how I justify myself, but more importantly, how we think as human beings and how important it is to own your own judgment and your own self-awareness and your own lessons learned and your own responses to people. If you expect that people are going to judge you, have a response ready so that you're not kind of thinking of it in the spur of the moment, that you know what you're going to say. Oh, thanks very much for noticing. I really enjoy my handbag. Or if it's a rude thing to say, why would you say that to me? You will find that shuts people down really quickly. I hope this video has been interesting. I hope it's been informative and there's some little tips and tricks in there. I'm interested to know what you think when you get judged or criticised, and some of your response techniques. Freud famously said all projection is a form of denial, and I see a lot of projection on YouTube, particularly luxury YouTubers that I'm watching, around that their problems are our problems, or that their mistakes are our mistakes, and I think that's wrong. I think that we're all different and unique, and we all have a different perspective, and it's just better to own your own stuff. And if you want to share it, you can share it with others, rather than say this is a symptom of being a luxury handbag lover, because I don't believe that that's the case. So here's to being you, loving what you love, and shutting down the haters if they come at you. Don't minimize. I just find the more that I own my interests and what's important to me, the less invitation I give to others to challenge or critique that. So that's my 2 cents worth. I hope it's been interesting and informative. Thanks very much for asking the question, Karen. I know it's been a little while, but it took me a bit to get my thoughts together, and I feel like today's the right day to do that video. So if you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and keep the conversation happening in the comments. What's your perspective? What's your story? What's your opinion on projecting your problems onto other people? How do you respond when you are criticised? I will see you in my next video. Ciao for now.